You are listening to The Vassals of Kingsgrave. Today we'll be giving an audio commentary for the 1982 science fiction classic Blade Runner, directed by Ridley Scott and starring Harrison Ford, based on the Philip K. Dick novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. This is Katie, Lady Griffin on the forums, and today I am joined by...
This is Duncan, or Valkyros on the forum.
I'm Bina007 on the forums, or Bina in real life.
Glad to have you two. So, going around a bit, are y'all flans? Are you fans of Blade Runner? I mean, is this a movie you've seen recently, or from your childhood, or...?
I think I was pretty late when I first saw it. I think I was maybe 17, 18 when I first saw it, and I probably haven't seen it since then until recently. But yeah, I really enjoy it. I mean, I don't know if I'd put it up in like best of movies, but it's just like an amazing visual experience. So yeah, I love watching. I love rewatching it. It's a cool movie, and yeah, I don't know. I think I love all those sort of dystopic sort of mixes of sci-fi and horror, like The Terminator and Alien. Yeah, I just love that aesthetic and that feel of those movies, the kind of cynicism and grimness of it in terms of our relationship with technology.
Yeah, it came out when I was really, really young, and my mum worked in the cinema at the time, and she kind of like took me to see it, which either makes her the best or the worst parent ever. She had this strong belief that I should see it on the big screen, and of course I didn't really understand anything of it, but I was mesmerized by how it looked. And then I rediscovered it as a college student and watched it a lot then, like different versions. The final cut wasn't quite out at that point. And yeah, so it's one of those movies that we probably watch once a year. It's just so stunning and it's so influential. And it has a kind of bleak aspect to it, which I think suits Song of Ice and Fire fans maybe. So yeah, it's one of my favorite movies. But it does have problems. I think like Roger Ebert was right. It does have sometimes it's hard to connect to it emotionally. So we can maybe get into that as we watch the movie.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of like those 1940s hard-boiled like film noir films. Like all the central characters are really cynical and disconnected from the world. But I love that in a sort of sci-fi setting. It was so cool.
Yeah. I saw it pretty young when it was playing on TV, and the very first scene I ever saw was Daryl Hannah beating the shit out of Harrison Ford, doing the gymnastics before she gets shot and starts thrashing around. Spoiler alert. But yeah, that freaked me out when I was a kid. So in my memory, it was always a really disturbing movie, and I didn't see the whole thing until much later. And the first version I saw was the theatrical cut with that voiceover ending with The Shining. They cut footage from literally from Stanley Kubrick's Shining and put it over the end as Harrison Ford and Sean Young drive away into the mountains. It was it didn't.
Right, so that's the is that the original cut? Because I've only ever seen the director's cut, and we were talking about this for the last podcast, being the idea that whatever cut you see, that's kind of the definitive version. So I've never seen the version with all the narration and all the sort of added happy ending and stuff. I've only seen the director's cut. So
what happened is the movie went hugely over budget. So the people who'd put up the completion bond were obviously desperate for it to get as much of an audience as possible to get their money back, and they were the ones who imposed the voiceover. And they were the ones who, in testing, said, look, we need a happy ending. And I don't think anyone involved in the production liked that ending. I think different people have different theories as to whether the voiceover works. And some really famous people, like Guillermo del Toro, for instance, really loves the voiceover. So I think it does depend on which one you kind of grew up with and loved. I actually like them both differently. I think without the voiceover just gives you more time to sort of absorb the visuals, but nobody likes the happy ending.
Yeah, this movie had a very troubled production history. As you said, it went over budget. There was also a lot of tension on the set between Harrison Ford and Ridley Scott and some of the production designers. A lot of stuff that was made it a harrowing experience to try and finish, and got a fairly lukewarm reception critically and popularly at the time. It was disappointing for most of the people involved. And it released, unfortunately, several weeks after E.T. came out. And so it did not fare well, because E.T. was just reigning for weeks and it just refused to die at the box office. It's flourished since. Obviously, it's become sort of a mainstay in science fiction pop culture, and it frequently makes Sight and Sound's list of the greatest movies of all time. But as for the versions, there's a lot of versions if you look at the wiki page, but officially I think there's just 5. There's a theatrical release, there was a international release, a director's cut that came out in 92, a broadcast version, and then the final cut release, which came out in 2007, which is the version that Ridley Scott prefers. It's the one he had the most time to work on and massage into what he wanted, and that's the version we will be watching today. So, are y'all ready to try to sync this up and hopefully it won't be a complete train wreck for three of us?
I've got it paused
Hopefully
on
not.
000, but it probably still won't work. But anyway, let's. Do you want to count us down?
Sure. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, play. All right, I'm looking at Harrison Ford, his name.
Did you start at 000?
I did.
That's not
I'm
why
looking
I
at it.
stopped.
I'm looking at a tree.
Yeah, I'm looking at a tree too.
All right, that's the studio, that's the production company. I'll
The
pause.
lad
Wait
company.
for. Tell me when you see Harrison Ford, and we'll count that as 0. The name
Okay.
Harrison Ford, not the actor.
Okay. Turn the volume down a little bit as well. The Lad Company. Those were the days.
Hmm.
Now
And
we
Sir
got
Ron Ron
credits.
Shaw. Speaking of producers who died last week.
There's Harrison Ford.
All right.
Okay, just a minute. I'm not there yet.
That was 40 seconds in. Blade Runner.
Um, no, still on Bud Yorkin presenting. Okay, now I'm on Harrison Ford. So, do
All
you
right.
want to count us down to starting from now?
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna. Jeez. I'm pausing at M. Emmett Walsh. Tell me when M. Emmett Walsh pops up on either of you guys.
Emmett
Katie,
Walsh.
Katie, tell me. Katie, you tell me because you're the one who's gonna do it.
Yeah.
All right, hang on. Where the hell is Emmett Walsh's name? Oh, there. Okay, Emmett Walsh. All right, there we are.
All right, there we go.
Are you there, Bina?
Where
Okay,
are
let
you
me
up, Vina?
just let it run forward.
Just comically.
Because
It
how
must
do people
sound
ever swing
ridiculous.
watches to go into war?
It's
It's
because it's
on
different regions. It's ridiculous.
Rutger Hauer, Sean Young, he never did anything again.
Mm.
Edward James Olmos, Battlestar Galactica, I love it. There we go, M. Emmett Walsh.
All right. So counting down. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Play. It's exactly a
Genius.
minute in.
Okay, super. Ah, relief.
Hopefully maybe we won't stay synced up, but hopefully we can try. Oh Lord, I've watched this movie about 4 times the past week, so I'm a little Blade Runnered out, but I'm excited to watch it again with you
I just want
guys.
to say a few words about Sir Run Run Shaw, who's like one of the producers of this film, because he died last week, and he's so amazing when you read his autobiographies. He was like this Hong Kong nobody, like kid with no shoes. He basically produced every single great martial arts film that ever happened, apart from the Bruce Lee ones. Like Tarantino, like loves that guy, and yet any other cool film you ever see globally that had trouble getting money, he's typically the guy who put in that crucial 2 million to get it made. So just kudos to Run Run Shaw and his impeccable taste. May he rest in peace.
Oof. Did it say what he died of?
Oh, old age. I think he was like 107 or
Oh,
something.
Jesus.
Yeah, he just looks like some wise kind of guru of martial arts. It's hilarious.
So have either of you read the novel?
Yes,
Yes, I have as well.
No.
which doesn't really bear massive resemblance
The
to the.
first half of it does, and the second half veers off. There's a lot more androids in the novel than there are in the book. I mean, in the film, excuse me.
Well, in the book, Deckard's is not a replicant, right?
Right, whereas in this version, I mean, there's no argument. It's implied heavily that he is.
Yeah. Here we go. The Star Wars crawl.
Mm-hmm.
Retirement. I love the George Orwell kind of double speak. Like it wasn't called execution; it was called retirement. It's such a slippery world.
And replicant, the term I think was somebody who was working on the film, a geneticist or some sort of scientist, was like, you can't call them androids. It's more accurate to call them replicants. And I forget what the reasoning was behind it, because in the book they are called androids.
Andes.
Andes, yes.
Oh, look at this. Oh, this is just so stunning, isn't it?
Los Angeles 2020. Looks about how I remember Los Angeles last time I was there.
It doesn't look massively different to the real Los Angeles.
Fire
Yeah,
in
they've
the
really
sky.
cleaned it up since then. South Central.
Exactly.
Mm,
But it's a world that's wrecked by, I guess, it's the war and pollution and everything's dying, right? So,
right.
Yeah, I think in the novel, I haven't read the original novel, but apparently it's set after like a World War III scenario or something
Right.
like World War III, and the radiation and the nuclear fallout has basically just settled mist and debris all over the sky and blotted out the sun, and all the animals are basically dying off.
There's a huge Deckard's one of his primary motivations in the novel is that he wants to buy a real authentic sheep because he has a mechanical sheep. It's considered this sort of shame in their society to own a mechanical sheep and not be able to afford a real animal.
Oh, I love this. So this is one of the best models. This is the Tyrell Corporation, which is basically this 12-foot handmade model.
Oh, look at that eye.
We are. Never mind. I think we're way off sync.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm ahead. I'm going to pause a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
I can't believe I missed off sync so early in. The eye is amazing though, and it's such a key theme in the movie, like seeing and what seeing means, and whether you see things that then become memories or not. Inception's such a rip-off of this film.
Okay, so yeah, I'm looking at Holden drinking his coffee.
Yeah.
Leon is sitting down at his chair.
Oh, I haven't got that yet. Damn it. Okay, he's almost going to sit down.
Sat down.
And he's down.
Yep.
I think Duncan and I are now in sync, which is shocking.
I think you're in sync with me as well.
Yeah.
I love how the Voight comfort sheet, it's like this old school bellows that breathes as it looks into your eye.
So this is what the Voight camp test.
So it's interesting because it seems to be the test is testing empathy because they give you a bunch of questions about how you would react to various animals in peril. And your eye or your breathing determines how empathetic you are to the animal. But it's kind of ironic since the humans themselves don't have any real empathy for the replicants.
And also, like on this test, presumably sociopaths and psychopaths would be classed as replicants.
Right. Let's say
And yet Batty, who has the capacity to empathize with Deckard as he's dying, would be classed as a human.
There's a huge concern in the novel, and lesser in the movie, about the possibility of accidentally killing a human being because they didn't pass the test because they either have flat affect or they're not intelligent enough to empathize correctly.
And you see with the later, more advanced replicants like Rachel actually developing a keener sense of empathy, so it takes a lot longer to sort of flesh them out as replicants.
I love the idea that this is such a poison world. He doesn't even know what a tortoise is because he's just never seen one.
Yeah.
But you look at Los Angeles today. This is 2019, a town or city that's running out of water. That's the smog. I hate the air in LA.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem that far away. But I always feel that the atmosphere of this movie is more sort of Hong Kong, New York than LA. It's a weird. It's kind of this universal metropolis because. I mean, Los Angeles, the one thing it really doesn't have is a downtown. It doesn't have that buzzing, crazy, grimy energy.
Ridley Scott was fascinated with Hong Kong in the late 50s and 60s, where it still seemed partially medieval, but it was obviously moving towards an industrialized megacity. And for him, in his mind, he was convinced that the Chinese would inherit the earth, and so. And it was also a big facet of cyberpunk in the early 80s, or what would become cyberpunk, this idea of East meets West, and East becoming the dominant corporate structure of the new future.
But they get it so wrong. So here now, I'm back in the cityscape where you see the Japanese geisha girls. And to me, that's such a 1980s concern that Japan was going to take over, like films like Black Rain and all that sort of Nippon paranoia. And yet really it is China. So Ridley Scott, if he truly thought that was way, way more accurate than we all were in the 80s.
You can buy... Go on.
I was just going to say that if you go to Kowloon today, I mean, you go off a back street and this is exactly what you'll see. People at bars eating. It's very much that feeling. It's so accurate.
This entire film was shot, I think it was 16 weeks, and it was a complete night shoot. And apparently the conditions on set were just humid and grimy. And nobody, like after the first week, nobody was happy to be there anymore.
Yeah, apparently it's one of the most grueling productions ever. I mean, I think the crew started referring to it as like Blood Runner after a while, because it's just such a tough shoot with the with the director. Like he was so used to British crews and getting things done a certain way, and the American crews kind of irked him because I think this is his first American feature. And yeah, just really tense, especially between Harrison Ford and Scott, who just weren't even talking to each other by the end.
Ridley
Although in
Scott
fairness,
is
I mean,
notoriously demanding as a director.
yeah, and he's used to he couldn't use his crew because it was the unionized American system, and he didn't see why he had to have so many people when he was used to working with a much skinnier crew. But he
Yeah.
also had absolutely no people skills. So, but neither does Harrison Ford. Edward James Olmos.
He was
So
speaking
this,
Esperanto in this, or he came up with this language he called city speak, and that's what he's speaking to Harrison Ford, and it's primarily Hungarian, and I think he calls him like horse dick or something. Apparently gets a big.
Hungarian.
Well, yeah, he made up this language that was essentially like what he would consider to be the language of the underclass, which is an amalgamation of all different languages, but for that part it was primarily Hungarian.
Ah, cool.
I love
Yeah, I
the
guess
fact that he put so much effort into such a small part.
I know. Gaff.
The spinners.
There's so much minute detail just on the city level too. I mean, they had magazines, like custom magazines made to put in the magazine stands, and even the meters for the parking meters are all unique, and they they don't get any screen time. But he wanted it to feel as lived in as possible.
Yeah,
Which he totally does.
there were film journalists who were going around the set and reading things on buses, like the bus driver is armed and things like that. And none of it appears in the film, but apparently Scott thought it would create a more, I don't know, a better atmosphere for the actors' performances or whatever, or a more layered world.
So the top of this building is the Close Encounters spaceship they've reused.
Mm-hmm. I just read an article the other day about the pollution in Beijing is so terrible now that they've set up LED screens to project a virtual sunrise because people miss seeing the sun, apparently, in
Oh,
the morning.
Yeah, China's insane. I went on a sort of a tour of tier 2 and 3 cities. So the I say smaller cities, but they're like, 15 million people. And so I did like 10 internal flights in like 2 weeks. And I never saw coming into land, I never saw the tarmac because the pollution is so bad. It's
wow,
pretty
that's
horrific.
terrible.
This is a Union Station. Have either of y'all listened to the there's three commentaries on the DVD I have, but there's one with the two screenwriters. Shit, I have their names somewhere. Uh,
Well,
Hampton,
once Hampton Fancher.
yeah, and David Peoples. It's
I'm
really,
amazed they're talking now because
oh my god, it's so worth
wasn't
listening to.
wasn't Fancher like really pissed off because he didn't realize Peoples had been given the script to rewrite?
At the time, maybe, I mean, it sounds like they're friends now. I mean, the whole commentary, they just bicker like a married couple. It is incredible. Like the whole time they're like, "Oh yeah, this scene is for shit." But that line was great. Well, that was my line. No, it wasn't. And it just goes like that the whole time.
So, what do you guys think of the character of Gaff and all the little origami creatures he creates throughout the movie?
Well, you know the story behind that, do you? Of Ridley.
Maybe, but yeah, I was just wondering what you guys thought.
I mean, it's a pretty neat little personal effect. I like it.
Yeah, yeah.
Mementos. Apparently, Ridley Scott got the idea. Well, the unicorn came in. That was a different thing, but he was talking to a friend who had picked up a hitchhiker, and apparently this hitchhiker was not very talkative when the friend was driving him into town, but before he got out of the car, he said, "Thanks for the trouble, this is for you," and he put an origami unicorn on the dash. And that's where the idea
Wow.
came from. This is such a, like, 1940s and 50s noir scene of sitting in a dark room smoking, watching a projector screen.
Yeah.
I love the idea that despite the fact that the Earth is so horrific that the replicants are trying to get back there because they somehow feel at home in this like decadent world. Like, why would you want to come back from an off-world colony?
Hmm.
So what do you think of the character of, or at least Harrison Ford's performance? Because Deckard, I don't know, he's not much of a character for me, or he's never been. He has these moments of boyish charm, but I think that's just Harrison Ford's goofiness sometimes coming through in what is really a grim character.
Yeah, I mean, the attraction for me has always just been everything else. I mean, Deckard's kind of an interesting vehicle to explore some other areas, but for me, the other replicants are more interesting, and the world itself is just so visually engaging.
Yeah, to me, it's Roy Batty who's the memorable character.
Absolutely.
Mm,
But then again, he
yeah,
gets like the coolest death scene probably in cinema history. So, yeah.
yeah.
I'm not
I'm
sure
just like a
Harrison
sucker.
Ford's even acting here. I mean, he just looks pissed off, and I think he just was pissed off. And
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's. I can't tell if he's because he obviously has charisma in certain performances, but here it just seems like, I guess sometimes he's okay, but other times it just seems like words are just falling out of his mouth.
He mugs it up in a few scenes, which I think
Yeah.
might be his more natural speed.
I mean, he always has stated, despite Ridley Scott then doing the final cut as a final fuck you to him, he always claimed that he was a human, not a replicant, and
Right.
that he felt it was really harsh on the audience not to give them a human, sympathetic protagonist. But looking at the performance, it's not like he's making it this very um, engaging,
Yeah.
charming. He plays it far more as a sort of dead replicant than as a human.
Although the replicants we see are full of life and psychotic energy.
Yeah, so maybe it's a deliberate choice and it's meant to be ironic.
Yeah, the humans are the downbeat ones.
Yeah, the argument of whether or not Deckard is a replicant has never been terribly interesting to me because it doesn't change much as far as the themes of the movies go. Whether or not, because I mean, the movie in general is just all about what is personhood, and in the end, I mean, if he is or he isn't, we've established at the end that the replicants have the power to empathize and have personhood. So even if he is, it's, I don't know, not that big of a deal.
I
I,
agree.
f-
It's
I
the
feel,
question
yeah.
and the issues about what makes a replicant are far more interesting than the answer.
Yeah. I feel like if there is a character to Deckard, it's in that kind of struggle, this idea that, he doesn't have much dialogue and he doesn't have narration in this cut, obviously, but just the notion that he always feels like there's something wrong with him that he
Mm.
can't quite put his finger on. He remembers things, but he doesn't remember. There's just something he can't quite place, like a splinter in his mind. And at the end, when he looks at the unicorn origami, it's almost like he has this realization. He grasps something and he nods and I don't know, he just goes on with his life. He goes into the future, like having realized something about himself. But as you say, it's all very subtle and not really explained in dialogue.
The movie is very lean, perhaps to its detriment, as it feels like it could benefit from a few other scenes, even though it is pushing 2 hours. Owl.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to having a bit of narration, like a bit of like understanding of his character, but apparently the narration that we did get in the original cut, which I haven't seen, was just really poorly done and poorly written.
Well, it was very last minute and tacked on. Are you guys all
Mm.
on Sean Young, the femme fatale?
Yes.
Yeah.
Her amazing pompadour. This office is incredible. It's so Egyptian and just saturated with golden light.
Yeah, you can finally see the sun above the clouds. Tyrell's the only one who gets to poke above all the pollution.
It's amazing matte painting. It always makes me sad that matte painting doesn't exist anymore as a technique. And I think this movie just benefits so much for having all the sort of special effects done in camera. It just gives everything a weight and a sort of an authenticity that modern CGI never has that texture and that weight. It's just
Totally. And the
beautiful.
miniatures, just
Mm.
fantastically detailed and carved. It's gorgeous. And you can tell, as you said, there's a tangibility there. There's something physically there that you just don't get with CGI.
I think the only person who's still keeping it going is Peter Jackson because he still tends to mix up old school effects with the new.
Mm.
One could argue that he overdoes CGI.
Well, I think The Hobbit is much less restrained than Lord of the Rings.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, Lord of the Rings, things like, using the Orthanc as a model really works well, I think, and, Dol Guldur and all those sorts of sets.
Mm.
But I love this idea, like this thematic idea, that in the future, the rich will literally live higher than the poor, and so will live above the pollution. So
Mm.
only the wealthy will see the sunrise and sunset. And that to me is like something that could definitely happen.
And contrasting the grimy, horrible chaos of the streets and how claustrophobic it feels and drizzly and scummy and just wet down in the trenches compared to this very beautiful, almost like Roman temple up here.
Mm.
It's like Mount Olympus or something.
I think the casting of Sean Young is really interesting because she hadn't really done anything up to this point, and
She'd done nothing. She hadn't even done like high school productions.
so I can only assume that Ridley Scott wanted to get laid. But I mean, apparently that was one of the really major problems that caused the Harrison Ford rift, because basically Ridley had to sort of minutely direct her in every single scene. So Harrison Ford then got sort of upset that she was getting all the attention from the director and he wasn't getting any. So he then got pissed off, and it's really funny watching interviews with him where he's so flattering towards Rutger Hauer and his portrayal of Batty. And when he's forced to say something about Sean Young, it just says like the bare minimum.
Oh, I love what I forget the technique or how they do it, but the light that they put in the replicant's eyes, and they do the same thing with the owl to imply artificiality.
Mm.
It just makes this flatness in their irises.
There is a moment in the film where Harrison Ford has that just for a split second, this red shock in his eyes, and some people have pointed to that as possible another clue that he's a replicant.
Really, what scene is that?
It's in the second scene where they're in his apartment.
Mm.
I'll point it out when it comes up. It could have just been a mistake, like he could have looked into the light that was meant for her, but yeah. I think this actor is the same guy who was in The Shining. Didn't he play the guy
Yes.
who plays Tyrell was the bartender in The Shining?
Yeah, he's one of those guys who just has this like naturally rather sinister face, and then he has these like massive glasses. It's like he's not ugly or anything. It's just something like a little bit off, something a little bit distrustful.
Yeah,
It's a little
he could
turtly.
snap at any minute. So that's two Shining connections.
And then there's a famous quote from someone: "Never trust a man who wears a bow tie."
I've heard that and I don't know where it's from.
Commerce is our goal here at Tyrell. I mean, I find it really interesting is that in this future, it's not governments who control us, like it's corporations. Like you don't really get a sense that there is a functioning government at all in this movie. Like the future belongs to corporations.
That is very much the hallmark of cyberpunk that came out of the late 70s and burgeoned into the 1980s and early 90s.
In a way, I find that very plausible as well. In the US, where you can have massive political lobbyists putting in huge campaign donations. In the UK, where, we're very enthralled to the banks. It seems kind of plausible to move in that direction.
Those have to be quadruple focals. Those glasses are incredible.
Must be so heavy on his head.
So we should probably talk about the production design and the influence of Mobius and heavy metal. Was it like a French graphic novel magazine that all these amazing artists were all drawing for and just coming up with these incredible worlds?
I have not heard that aspect of the production history.
Yeah, apparently at this point in time, the reason why there's so many movies with this amazing kind of production design is that, I mean, obviously Mobius is the most famous, but there was a French kind of collective.
Yeah, it was called Metal Hurlant, and it was a blend of sci-fi and horror short stories with like very surreal, complex artwork.
The man who comes through the door in the apartment is not Harrison Ford. That is his body double.
Oh, okay.
They had to redo this scene in retakes, and apparently
You're ruining the movie magic. Another piece of artwork that inspired the film was a 1940s painting by Edward Hopper called Nighthawks, which is like a diner at night in New York City. It's very sort of noirish.
Although ironically, that has like about 2 people in the diner, not 200.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Ridley Scott, in his mind, he said that this movie could potentially be in the same universe as Alien. Like he could imagine the crew of the Nostromo getting off ship and going into a bar in this world.
Yeah, I could see that.
Definitely, that'd be awesome. Yeah. Although, I mean, Alien probably takes place like 60 years afterwards, but it does feel like a similar universe, especially with the corporations running everything.
It's so stunning. But anyway, so this heavy metal group, have you guys heard the story of Jodorowsky's Dune?
No.
So
Scott was
basically,
working on it at the time, I think. Yeah.
so basically, Jodorowsky, like the mental Mexican director who did El Topo, at one point, because everyone was going to do Dune, I think Ridley Scott at one point was going to do Dune. But he commissioned Mobius and all these guys to do all the production design and produce this amazing book that scene by scene was taking you through how everything would look for Dune, his Dune. And it was shopped around Hollywood, and of course no one would give him the money to make it because he is just absolutely mentalist. But if you look at the artwork in that book, and this was maybe mid-70s, I think, and then there's a film actually called Jodorowsky's Dune, a documentary. And you can take every single panel from that book and get movies like Alien and Blade Runner and Star Wars and tons of movies that have obviously lifted from it. Because those books, there were only 10 of them, these big, hard, heavy books that kind of just circulated Hollywood. And every production designer just wanted to see it. And it was really hyped. And it's kind of like one of those classic, the most famous movie that was never made.
Oh.
And there's
What year was
definitely
that?
there's definitely bits of the Tyrell Corporation and whatnot that are taken from that, I think.
So going back to Rutger Hauer's introduction on screen a few seconds ago, he's so incredibly handsome in this movie. Just in the face, he's this beautiful white wolf of a man.
He's a real
Yeah.
Nietzschean Ubermensch, though, isn't he? Like
Yeah,
with the
he's
blonde
like
peroxide hair, and it's
Yeah,
like
he's
he's
very
good
sort
looking,
of-
but in an almost sinister way. I think.
Hmm.
Yeah, he's like an
It's like-
Aryan. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like too perfect.
Or a Targaryen.
Yeah.
This scene was always a little bizarre for me. Going in
What?
the false eye salesman, prosthetic eye salesman, James Hung.
It really reminds me actually of what was the film that gave you I'm losing my will to speak, Pacific Rim,
Have not seen it.
when you see that sort of underworld dodgy backstreet market where they're selling all sorts of illegal stuff, and this kind of idea of people selling, I think in that movie it was alien parts, Geiju parts, but here they're selling like body parts to fool detectives.
It's very much have either of you seen Minority Report?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a great scene in that movie involving an eye transplant, which
Yeah.
probably is maybe a little homage to this.
Oh, there's loads of homage. I mean, you can just trace it all the way through, can't you? I mean, the spinning top
Definitely, yeah,
in
but-
Inception is definitely trying to create a unicorn moment, quite explicitly.
And so many movies just been influenced by this, like Dark City and The Matrix, and even something like Seven.
Dark City is an amazing film. I never understand why that isn't more famous or better known. Roger Ebert was a huge champion of that.
Oh yeah, I think he did the commentary for it. He was very enthusiastic about that film.
Oh,
Sniff.
yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Sometimes, like, there are certain movies that come out and think, I can't wait to see what Ebert says about that. And then suddenly you realize, oh,
He's dead. Oh my god. I used to read his reviews every week and I still forget.
And then at kind of the same time in England, we had, I mean, he didn't die, thank God, but we have a very august reviewer called Philip French. And he retired at about the same time. So the two absolute go-to guys that I used to read were no longer around. And it's like, I don't know what to think anymore. There's only A.O. Scott's left. So I don't know if you guys are at that Rutger Hauer line. If only you'd have seen what I've seen with your eyes.
Mm.
It's such a wonderful, it just sums up so much of the slipperiness of this world.
And it's almost like he's asserting that replicants aren't just this collection of body parts. They have a sense of self and individual subjectivity.
Yep.
Yeah, the eye is a sort of interesting motif throughout the movie. I read somewhere where Scott was describing it as this kind of two-way mirror, where it's not only seeing on behalf of the individual, but it's kind of revealing a person's feelings and thoughts to onlookers. So the
The
red
window
glow
to the soul.
That's right. Yeah. So the red glow obviously immediately turns people off because it seems so inhuman.
That's also the accumulation of experience. I mean, that's part of the poignancy of when he dies, is all the things that I have seen are dying with me.
Yeah, memory is very much tied into visual more than any other sense. What you see, what you remember.
It's so disgusting. I always love the fact that apparently, like, the other three, well, maybe not Zora, but the other two androids, they seem a little simple based on what their intended purpose was, but they're almost like a commune, or at least that's how Ridley Scott describes them, is they kind of just float around the galaxy taking care of each other, probably having lots of sex with each other. But they're like children. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't have much life experience. They have this. I mean, Batty does at least. He has this hyper intelligence because of what he was designed for. But he has these moments and these facial expressions that are so pouty and almost boyish and innocent. Because he's only what, like 3.5 years old.
Yeah. I just want to point out that scene where they just drove through the tunnel. Like, even in what's basically an inconsequential scene, the way you have that glimmering light flickering off that tunnel instead of like acid blues and pinks, it's so stunning. Just every scene has something to see.
Yeah, I love the artificiality of the street lights compared to Tyrell's very natural fires and candles and things like that.
I always thought this was the coolest elevator.
I think you guys are a little bit ahead of me. Oh, no, here we are. Yeah, the walls are like a temple or something. They actually look like it's cut off the Tyrell pyramid.
Yeah.
Apparently, this design for the apartment and well, the whole apartment building, but also Deckard's personal apartment, were based on a Frank Lloyd Wright building, and I had the name of it somewhere around. But essentially, like the wall, it was supposed to be like a Mayan temple in sort of the wall panels, except with a technological motif.
Definitely works.
Yeah, Los Angeles, it is this great pastiche of like 100 different cultures just kind of merged awkwardly together.
I love that he opens the door again. I don't know, something about like he has just from the way he opens it, he hasn't let go of the doorknob. Oh, the lighting in his apartment is absolutely phenomenal.
But yeah, you're right. The wall tiles are just insane. It almost feels like it's the inside of a spaceship or something. And then the blinds, it's just, oh, the refracted light.
It almost is like the inside of the Nostromo, an Alien.
Yeah.
Mm.
So this was one of Ridley Scott's big problems. Like, he's like, I can go into a room and I know how I want my light set up. I don't need to have this like 2 hour conference with the director of photography just to appease his,
Ego.
ego. Because normally he would be the one coming up with the lighting suggestions. Like, the director tells him what he wants to achieve, and then the DP has to come up with how to do it. Whereas Ridley Scott is right. I want a xenon there. I want the backlight there, and just get on with it.
Yeah, apparently that was the problem in the first 2 weeks of filming. He decided 2 weeks in he didn't like the lighting and they had to reshoot everything.
Ugh.
And that was a really bad start to the production. It just went downhill from there.
He's a notorious perfectionist.
I mean, that's a good thing, I guess, because you get amazing movies like this, but I don't know if it works out later in his career so much.
I think the problem is when you've been in commercials, and in Britain in particular, the commercial directors are given a really high prestige, but the amount of money they get per second of what's on screen is it's like an order of magnitude, like 100 times higher than for a movie director. And again, that's higher than for a TV director. So, you're coming from the most luxurious, indulged place as a director, then suddenly get a movie which is really big budget, but for him,
This scene always breaks my heart. I mean, there's a lot of things in this movie that break my heart, but combined with the like the Vangelis score that plays through the film, it's very nostalgic and melancholy and a little purple, but the scene where she realizes that her memories are false and this delicate memory she has of watching a spider in the window is meaningless because he's basically saying it word for word. What she knows is I don't know. Like it didn't strike me the very first time I saw this movie, but like the more I watch it, the more painful it gets.
see, that's interesting. So your reaction is it breaks your heart. I've never felt that strong an emotional reaction to this film, and in a way, I've always criticized the film a little bit for that. And maybe it's just because I'm spending so much time looking at the backdrops that I'm not noticing her reaction to that as much as I should be.
No, I do think that there is an emotional vacuum in the film. Like it feels like it's a lot of great thematic work and a lot of great set design that's spinning in a whirlpool around nothing sometimes. But I think if you take individual moments, they are quite beautiful, and I think that's one of the most beautiful parts in the film.
Mm.
It's just the expression on her face because he's not trying to torture her, but it's so cruel that he can spell back this memory for her of something that she's never told anyone, or that was something that she thought was deeply personal is completely artificial.
And he sort of realizes halfway through how cruel he's been and tries to take it back.
They did a cool thing with this photograph where they make it come to life for just a split second. As in, you can detect movement when he stares at it long enough, just to
Really?
just to keep the viewer on edge, like almost like he's seeping into what he thinks is her memory.
Mm. Which is V cool.
I've never been able to make out what the writing on the back of the photograph says.
Yeah, me neither. Actually, it's probably worth just mentioning. I mean, the other major visual influence, apart from all the Mobius stuff, is Metropolis.
Mm.
Ah, Deckard. But he knows he's like hurt her, but he doesn't really give a shit, does he? I mean, he's not massively upset.
Well, we don't really get to know him that well. I mean, in the book, he has a wife. He has these longings. He's a very petty person in some ways. But in here, he's more of a function for the story.
Have you guys got Priss yet?
Yep, here she comes.
Yep.
Cool. I love the whole look and makeup for Priss. I mean, it's so extreme, but it's what I think is amazing is Daryl Hannah manages to look like a hurt little girl behind all that makeup. She's not an actress that many people think of as great. She's just known more for her body and her physicality, but there's something really delicate and vulnerable here, even while she's like kicking the shit out of him.
Well, she
I
was
think
pretty
it's,
young at the time.
yeah, I think it's a really fine performance. I really do.
The thing that's always fascinating is the more times I watch the film, the more menacing she seems. As in, I mean, she has this delicacy about her. She's very much like a doll, but she was programmed. I mean, at the beginning they say she was a pleasure model, and she manipulates Sebastian, the poor guy who takes her in. And at first it seems like maybe she's genuine, like maybe she's simple, but there's something as soon as he turns away or whenever she cuts a glance at Batty, there's a cunningness in to show that she knows exactly what she's doing.
Yeah, I mean, she's the forerunner for Caprica 6 on Battlestar Galactica, isn't she?
I've never seen Battlestar Galactica.
Really, if you love this, I mean, it's such a huge influence. All these issues of identity and what makes, they call them Cylon, what makes a replicant, what makes a human.
Well, yeah, I know the Cylon thing because I
Yeah,
remember when
it's
that show was
huge.
on, it was a big buzz online of who is a Cylon, who's not a Cylon.
And Ronald D. Moore, the creator, I mean, he's very on record as saying Blade Runner was a massive influence. Oh, ouch.
She broke the window. That was an accident.
She actually broke her arm, didn't she? She had stitches.
Oh my god. I don't know why I was gasping. She got hurt, 20 plus years ago.
Yeah, no, she still has the scars from it on her elbow.
I mean, it was a happy accident. It's kind of neat when things like that happen during filming.
Yeah, let's kill the actors. Um,
These pillars show up everywhere in this movie. because that was something that Ridley Scott had realized to manage his budget better, is that he would take props, because they were, I mean, the stage that they're working on for the main street is actually not that big, but he would shoot and move things around so that you saw them at a different angle, or he'd turn things upside down so that you wouldn't recognize them. And so once you notice those pillars, they show up everywhere, but he would just spin them so you wouldn't be able to tell that they're the same pillars.
Yeah, because the main set's just the Warner Brothers New York street set, isn't it? Which I was really shocked. I was saying to Duncan yesterday, actually, I've done the Warner Brothers studio tour, which I would highly recommend. But the New York street set, it's literally maybe, I don't know, it's not even a kilometer long. It's tiny. So you just have to shoot at all different angles and dress it all differently to make it look like different scenes. I mean, in a sense, it's kind of, he gets a lot of criticism for going so over budget, but you have to say that everything's on screen and it's still a much lower budget than it should have been given how amazing it looks. I mean, he was still incredibly inventive.
I love, I love the addition of the mannequins in the lobby.
Yeah, it's so sinister.
It's something that shows up in Ghost in the Shell, when an anime movie that came out in 1996. And every sequel that followed from that film, but the juxtaposition between androids and dolls, and this unsettling tendency we have as people to reproduce our image in these non-living things.
Mm. So this is the Bradbury Building in downtown LA, just in the Bunk Hill area, which you can go into. They won't let you above the first floor, but you can go in, and it's stunning. It looks really ordinary from the outside, but inside you have this amazing courtyard with the filigree staircases.
I think heaps of movies have been filmed here, haven't they? Like along with Blade Runner, like 500 Days of Summer and Chinatown and The Artist and things like that.
Yeah. I don't think anyone wrecked it quite as much as Ridley Scott did.
Oh, the crew had a nightmare because they had to clean it up before the building opened in the morning, because they were shooting at night. And so when the building closed in the afternoon, they had to come in, spread filth around, muck it up, get the water, and then have it all cleared away before people came in the morning. So it was just a nightmare.
Ugh.
I love this apartment. I feel like I would like to live there.
Yeah, it's very French. It's very Parisian. Oh, she's putting such a number on him.
I know.
I'm almost embarrassed for him that he's falling for this.
Well, he's implied to be kind of simple, but in the movie, the way that he feels connected to the replicants is because he has a premature aging syndrome, which is essentially what they have, which is a built-in obsolescence. Whereas in the book, he feels more ostracized because he is simple, because he's genetically deficient, and he's not able to have the same rights as other people. This is Deckard about to see his unicorn.
Deckard looking moody. So I often wonder whether on this scene, because he's just exposed Rachel's memories as implants, whether he's remembering this and wondering to himself, is this an implant?
I think that's the implication, is that she has her spider dream and he has this unicorn dream, which he shouldn't have. It doesn't make sense with his environment, but it seems something that's deeply personal.
Marks out of 10 for any listener who can tell us what music this is, what the score is.
The Vangelis score or the piano music?
No, the piano music. Because it looks really hard. So Deckard's obviously like a grade 8 piano player.
For some reason, I love this detail of he grabs his alcohol and then he climbs. He doesn't go around the couch, he climbs over the couch. I know, it feels very lived in.
And that's the kind of thing that Harrison Ford brings, I think, that kind of... Oh, and the way the light comes out of the TV.
The Esper. This must have been super cool back in 1982.
Yeah, because of course now we all have iPads that we just like pinch pictures and stuff, but in those days...
Even though it is impossible to move three-dimensionally through a flat picture.
I never
But it will come.
that.
It will come. Don't worry. We'll get there. You can, if you look at modern sort of like editing decks, and if you're editing 3D, you can move through planes. You can almost do what he's doing. But yeah.
Right, yeah, if they have multiple cameras, they can triangulate through space. Yeah.
I
Although
love
it's not.
I
It's
love
not.
the visual cues of the lights beaming in through the windows at various times. It's like a big like a prison floodlight just probing into windows at various points. Like these are all little cell blocks.
super
Yeah.
intrusive. I think Ridley Scott said that the idea was that in order to keep the hover cars from crashing, there was some sort of, I don't know, emitter system that would keep them on track, and that's what the constant pulsing lights are.
Just that the flash, the glow of the television on his face, and just the lights constantly beaming in, it just creates this uneasy, almost paranoia in the viewer at least, or in me at least.
Oh, there's a deep paranoia in this film. Deep,
Yeah,
deep paranoia. This is a truly Orwellian world.
Well, anytime you have the
yeah.
theme of identity, there's going to be the question in the protagonist of, am I who I think I am?
Hmm. What's really going on? Yeah.
It's so clever.
It's also a nice sentimental touch that implies that Leon, who's not the smartest of the replicants, he had this hobby of taking pictures of his friends.
Mm.
Because it's the
Which is,
question that Batty asks him early in the film is, "Did you get your pictures?"
but it's a nice humanizing touch. That's what we do, right? As humans, we like to record memory.
Yeah, I guess they can't make their own memories, so they have to take pictures or rely on pictures.
Oh, Deckard actually doing some police work. So with all these neon lights, there's a symbol that appears again and again, and here it's in the round neon light in pink, which apparently is the symbol for origin.
Huh.
And it flashes up time and again, often behind Deckard, and is meant to subliminally say to people, what is the origin of these people, who are real and who aren't,
Mm.
which is really neat. Oh, man. This movie also reminds me a lot of, I don't know if any of you've seen Wong Kar-wai's In the Mood for Love,
No.
which is also a
Yeah,
movie that appears on the Sight and Sound list a lot in the top 10. And these kind of street scenes always remind me a little bit of about like that.
There was an ostrich off screen just a second ago, and there's a scene in the book where Deckard, there's an extended scene where he like calls a local pet shop and asks them how expensive the ostrich in their window is, and then he mopes about it because he can't afford it.
It's so funny.
Just as a side note, are y'all getting any echo on your end?
no,
Okay,
Actually,
good.
far less than yesterday.
All right, good.
You're definitely the stabilizing factor in this record.
yeah, it's weird. It seems to be more stable with the more people you have it. But if it's just two people, it's not as it's a lot of lag for some reason.
Okay, so here are some ostriches that have just been carried past. I love that livestock is like the contraband. It's so precious.
In the book, it's very tragic because he spends this whole bounty hunting adventure trying to get money to get a sheep, and he buys a goat instead, which for him is very novel. And then when he goes off to kill the remaining replicants, Rachel, who he has spurned, or rather she spurns him, she comes to his apartment and kills the goat.
It's like rather than a bunny boiler, a goat killer. Oh, hilarious. But even here, like the reflections. So this is very Edward Hopper, Duncan. Like the reflections in the windows and
Mm.
looking through glass. That's very much his sort of speciality.
I always thought it was a little absurd that the maker's serial number would be on every single scale.
But in a way, why not? I mean, You're at microscopic level genetic technology.
Maybe.
It's the equivalent of DNA. It's like, I don't know. Oh, I love this bar.
It's called Taffy's, I think.
It's almost like it's like a 1920s speakeasy. You've got women smoking with cigarette holders, which I always think is just so cool and sexy. And then you've got these kind of punk looking guys. And then you've got the sort of the 40s look. It's just all going on, but it kind of works and it shouldn't.
It's almost vampiric, like old Gothic meets New Future.
And that's why I think this movie just doesn't date. Like even the effects don't date because it's ready antiqued in a way. Whereas sometimes you can look at things like made much more recently, like the 90s, which have much more CGI effects and they already look kind of crummy. Whereas
Okay.
this to me looks like a movie that Guillermo del Toro could make right now.
Apparently, there was supposed to be later in this scene, there was supposed to be a dancer that he watches, uh, a woman with a snake, and Ridley Scott, like, they couldn't fit it into their budget, and they didn't have the technology to do what he wanted, but he asked at one point if it was possible to dip the dancer into a vat of mercury and then lift her out.
Isn't that like, wouldn't that just poison her skin
That
and
would kill her.
That's what they said.
No, Ridley, we can't do that.
It's like, it's for my art. What I love about Ridley Scott is like, even now, Ridley's just so like unapologetic. So he's like, I'm a director. I direct. Deal with it. This is not a collaborative art. I make a film. I'm the director. I carry the can. If I ask you to collaborate with me, that's great. But I am the director. Like he just doesn't apologize at all for the way he carries on.
Well, if you watch any of his later like historic movies like Kingdom of Heaven
Oh,
or
that's terrible.
Robin Hood, it's just like
Terrible.
Robin Hood is truly awful. I think Kingdom of Heaven has some merit, but those movies are just like nobody makes movies with that much gusto and just scorn for budget like Ridley Scott.
But in a way, better Ridley Scott than Tony Scott. Better than just these kind of
Oh, Tony.
hacky paint by numbers. I mean, may he also rest in peace. But
What, you didn't like Unstoppable?
oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I don't think Tony Scott's made a movie I like.
Didn't like True Romance.
Did he make True Romance?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. I kind of like True Romance.
Yeah.
These cigarette girls are hilarious. Like something out of Bugsy Malone. Now that's a great film.
So it was a few seconds ago, but Harrison Ford, he pulled something out of his mouth when he was doing it. Was that a mescal worm?
Oh,
I've always wondered that.
okay. Let me know when you guys get to the snaky woman. So I might be a bit ahead.
That's her, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, he just
Yep.
saw her.
Yep.
I think she's so. The actress's name is Cassidy. I'm blanking on her last name, but she's so beautiful in the face.
It's great makeup as well.
Yeah, that must have taken ages to put on.
Is that like a real snake?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
apparently it was her pet. Apparently, that's why she's so easy around it.
I was gonna say because that's impressive.
Well, in the movie, it's
Yeah.
artificial. Or so
Oh,
she
is it?
said.
I read it was. Yeah. I mean, yeah, in the movie it's artificial. Yeah. But I think in real life it's a real snake.
This is one of the scenes where Deckard mugs it up. He's pretending to be this whiny whistleblower. That's not a knock against whistleblowers. That's a knock against his character.
Have you guys seen The Big Sleep?
Yes, many, many, many times.
This reminds me of the time when Humphrey Bogart goes into the bookstore and tries to act really camp.
Yeah, definitely. I never thought of that before. That's so true.
I think in the commentary they mentioned that he got the idea from Bogart.
Yeah. Philip
Bogart
Marlowe.
is like my ideal. He really is. I'm amazed no one's decided to do a Casablanca commentary yet, actually.
I guess I find it easier to talk about sci-fi than drama or comedy. I don't know, there's just kind of more visual stuff you can pull out of it.
So,
Comedy's so subjective. Sorry.
so early in the movie, I think the screen said that she was a political assassin, which to me is just so badass. And she carries it. She seems like someone who could genuinely beat the shit out of Harrison Ford.
Yeah, I sort of got that confused. I thought it was the other way around. She was the, what do they call it, the pleasure unit, and the other girl was the thing. But I guess she seems the more sort of savvy person, so she's probably more of an assassin type.
All the women in this film just run rings around Harrison Ford. It's a real like proto-feminist movie. And what I love about it is it's subversive. So she gets her tits out, which I think, oh, pathetic. But then immediately flips into like just basically strangling him to death practically.
She puts on her transparent raincoat.
So why do you think she doesn't kill him?
I thought it was because somebody came in.
Okay.
She had to run.
Right.
Because she does, she looks over and, like, you don't hear the door open, you just hear a woman's voice, and then, yeah, she bolts.
Hmm.
Oh, this scene, the chase, so incredible.
This is where the city really opens up, yeah.
One of the
I love the nuns in their wimples.
Oh, yeah.
It's so random.
As Dave Allen always calls nuns, the Gestapo in drag. Anyone who's had a vicious convent education can attest.
This, one of the screenwriters, I forget which one, but in one of the early drafts of the script, the chase was supposed to end with Zora falling and crawling under a bus and trying to hide, and Deckard leans down and just blasts her away. And for him, it was so upsetting and saddening that it made him cry. And it obviously it got left out of the final drafts of the script, but that always struck me as an interesting alternate version of what this chase might have come to.
Also, I want to point out that it's hilarious that they have Harry Krishnas in the Screech world.
Harry Krishner's?
The guy
Yes.
It's just like running through the streets. Always made me laugh.
I mean, she's implied to be a murderer, and she's obviously, well, she's trying to survive, but there's something so harrowing and upsetting about, maybe it's just the expressions on her face, but you don't really want Deckard to kill her.
Yeah, just the pure fear. So I think coming up, we're going to see the first, well, the only real alteration to the final cut, which was he actually reshot the scene where she's being blasted through the windows,
Huh.
specifically for the final cut, which is, I don't think that's ever been done before.
Yeah, because that was always one of the real criticisms of the first one, that because the money was running out, the scene where she's like running through glass, which is the sugar glass, they had a stunt woman do it with this like wig that looked nothing like the original person. So that was always like the one in a movie that's so visually perfect. That was the one real blooper.
Yeah. I mean, Ridley Scott does seem to have that George Lucas instinct where he's trying to perfect his art constantly over time, constantly tinkering with it.
Well, I think the difference is that Ridley Scott had nowhere near final cut on this film originally, so I think it's kind of permissible. Whereas George Lucas had absolute final cut on the first one, so therefore I think it's a bit less permissible. And he really, if you think if that's the only real change in the final cut, that's pretty restrained. And he's only gone back and changed the one thing that everyone said jumped out because it looked so cheesy. So it's such a great scene. I mean, even with Sugar Glass, that's got to hurt. Kudos to the stunt person.
The music is amazing.
Yeah, Vangelis is just brilliant.
I always thought it interesting that she dies in this mannequin display with these other dolls.
Yeah.
Wonderful thematic. And the neon again.
Yeah.
But it's just so painful to watch. I don't know, it makes me more upset each time I watch it. And Deckard's gun, it's like a little hand cannon. It was in one of the commentaries, I think they said that it was supposed to be like a gravity gun or something. Like it creates a black hole that like punches your organs out. But apparently they couldn't get the effects to work, so they're like, it's just a gun. Make it a fat gun.
Oh, so sad. And all the people gawping, like coming in to have a bit of a look.
It's interesting, in the not because this is you can feel his resolve starting to flag and weaken in his mission, but in the novel Deckard's breaking point, there's a replicant or an android that's not in the movie. That in the novel it's an opera singer, and she has this beautiful singing voice, and Deckard tracks her down at an art gallery. And as him and this other bounty hunter are kind of taking her outside to kill her, they stop at the art gallery souvenir store, and she asks him to buy her an art book so that she can look at something when she dies. And it completely undoes him, and he's like, I can't do this anymore. And I mean, they do kill her, and it's awful, but after that he's like, I'm done. I can't do it. He realizes that he's begun to empathize with the replicants.
Edward James Olmos is in this so infrequently, but he's such a boss.
Just caps him on the shoulder.
Exactly.
So one of the theories about the character of Gaff, the reason he knows so much about Deckard is either that he knows Deckard's programming, like he's his sort of caretaker, or that Deckard's memories have been taken from Gaff.
Oh, I like that theory. That's interesting.
Yeah, I've always subscribed to that second one, that that's why he knows all these things.
That's why he has the unicorn. Yeah.
That's why he knows where he is at all times, and why he knows what he's thinking at various points throughout the film, without even Deckard saying anything. He knows when he's afraid, and he puts the chicken down, and he knows when he's getting involved in the relationship with Rachel, and he puts the little stick figure with the erection down, and then at the end of the unicorn.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of an elegant theory. I like that a lot. I've never heard that.
Yeah. Well, the idea is that Gaff is he doesn't seem to like Deckard at all through the thing. But the idea was Gaff was a Blade Runner, and he's obviously been injured on the job because he's walking with a cane. So they put his memories and his abilities into a replicant, and he just sort of watches over him as he does the job.
Yeah, I think it makes so much sense.
And there is this kind of nod at the end where Gaff says, "You've done a man's work." There's this nod of approval, and it seems to imply.
There's something super decadent about a world in which animals are so rare, and yet Rachel's running around in a massive mink coat.
Yeah.
Which you probably couldn't do now anyway because of animal rights campaigners. Peter would probably be on your ass.
Apparently it was based on a Greta Garbo coat. And look at Harrison Ford's face. He's completely mugging as he's about to get beat up.
He gets beaten up a lot in this film. No wonder he was pissed off.
I know. He gets torn up. That's the thing. I mean, people say, if he's a replicant, why can't he defeat these other replicants? But he actually takes a hell of a beating. Any other human would have been torn to shreds.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wake up time. I think that's the line that's coming. Oh, that windshield was broken before they threw him on it. I mean, it's almost humorous because he's just taking it and he's kind of joking along with him. He's getting the shit beat out of him. Oof.
Oh, that's such a cool scene. Rachel comes in with a gun.
Nice aim.
It's not a good look for her. She looks like a husky or something. You have to have a certain magisterial poise to carry a full-length mink coat.
This little detail is really cool, that the blood from his mouth seeps into the water. Or the liquor, actually. Apparently that was Harrison Ford's idea.
Yeah, it's cool. What's sad about this film, and maybe one of the reasons why it doesn't quite work on an emotional level for me, is just feels like there's no chemistry whatsoever between Sean Young and Harrison Ford. And you contrast this with the evident chemistry between him and Carrie Fisher on Star Wars, that wonderful banter they have. Whereas here it's just, and then we're going to get to that quite sort of violent sex scene, and it's just so sterile. It just hangs on the screen like a damp fish.
Mm.
Yeah,
It does
but I
feel
think
like
it's yeah.
I mean, it's no. I think they do what they can, but it feels like there's something missing.
I think it's
It's
almost like they're two kind of world-weary souls who just kind of find some comfort in each other. It's not a romance, but there's some kind of connection that they nourish each other with.
But she is, after all, the femme fatale character, and there should be something a little bit more.
Is
Alluring.
she?
Well, she's meant
Is
to
she the?
be, and she's meant to be the noirish femme fatale.
Okay, I saw the other two women as that role. The two replicant women.
Yeah.
Well, they think they
I get.
become so. I think Sean Young is just so young. She's obviously so intimidated to be in this film and on the set and playing this part. She just looks nervous the whole time. I don't think that's her playing a character. I think that's her just genuinely being nervous and intimidated and, almost too young and naive to play sexy.
Mm.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so I think the red eye's coming up in a minute or so.
Cool.
But I mean, it's a bit out of focus. Maybe I'm just imagining things. Oh, the blood. God.
Spitting out a tooth. Love it. Because at this point, her expression is kind of what curiosity. It's not kind of. She's meant to be playing it as being mildly attracted to him, right?
Right.
It's Harrison Ford, the biggest star in the world at this point, with his shirt off.
Yeah, but I guess that kind of works. The fact that she's a replicant.
Mm.
She is very immature. She's only a couple of years old. She doesn't have that emotional or
She looks
sexual
like an
maturity.
11-year-old who's put on her mum's makeup too heavily.
Mm.
She also doesn't have anywhere to go, and she might be appealing to him in a way because it's technically his job to kill her, and maybe it's like, well, maybe if I appeal to this emotional weakness that I sense in him, he won't blow my brains out.
Yeah, but I mean, the
Yeah.
go-to plan in this situation would be to try and seduce him, right?
Right.
Well, that's what I would do if I was in that position.
Okay, just watch
Her eyes are
Deckard's
definitely
eyes.
fake. Yeah. You see
You
that
can see it
slight
in it.
glance.
Watching
Yeah.
his eyes, right? Just watch his
Yeah.
eyes.
It definitely is there.
I mean, it could just be a
Yeah.
mistake because there's obviously a light source for both of them, and he might just have looked into it. But Ridley Scott claims that it was intentional.
He would say that.
I do
Yeah,
love the fact that both Ridley Scott and Harrison Ford are arguing this thing, and they actually have different accounts of what happened on set. It's hilarious.
Yeah,
Someone
I
needs to do like a
strongly believe that
documentary
the
on it.
final cut was simply the only reason he put it out was to sort of screw with Harrison Ford.
Rub
I
the
just think
salt in this.
he's that kind of a sort of vengeful person.
Although apparently the director's cut is a bit of a misnomer because Scott didn't actually put that together necessarily. I mean, they just sort of found that cut in vaults and someone else put it together.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, he had nothing to do with it, really.
he had some
Yeah.
input, but he was also working on Thelma and Louise at the time and just did not have the time he wanted for it.
Oh,
Hmm.
that's a
Are there any big differences between the final cut and the director's cut?
I have not seen the director's cut.
I think the key one is the ending. I think the difference is that the director's cut was kind of like an extended cut that was made at the time of the theatrical cut before they started monkeying about with it. But it was never fully put through post-production. So the real difference is just making sure that the music cues now sync up properly, cleaning up some of
Right.
the effects, and because that was more of like a working cut rather than a fully post-produced cut.
Sure, makes sense.
So I don't think it's massively different.
I always thought the pictures on his piano were a great detail.
Mm.
This implied history.
And the age of the photographs. I mean, they seem like they were taken in the 20s or something.
Yeah, sepia tint. All replicants played great 8 piano.
I think a minute ago. I think she asked if he had taken the test, and he didn't answer because he was asleep.
Whereas in the book, he's taken the test and passed, and we know that, right?
Right.
So.
Right.
There is some misdirection in the novel where there are a few points where you wonder if he could be, but at the end, he's confirmed to be human. So I always thought this was a beautiful shot when she takes her hair down. She looks like a completely different person.
She looks so much younger.
She's got those fantastic eyebrows.
It's quite 80s, actually, the big perm, the big eyebrows. The sort of end of 70s. She is stunning, but she sort of... Did she do much after this?
I don't think so.
And when you see, like, contemporary interviews with her, she's still absolutely stunning. She's barely aged. Actually, even Daryl Hannah's still very pretty. And Harrison Ford just still looks miserable.
That might be the most accurate description of him I've ever heard.
He's
He's
so
just such a
grumpy.
grumpy old man, isn't he? I mean, life has been so good to him. You know, he's been involved in two of the greatest franchises ever, Indiana Jones and Star Wars. He's lived a great life. I mean, cheer up, mate. It may never happen.
This dialogue is actually kind of sweet. Where it says, I dreamed of music, and then she says that she wasn't sure if she could play because she wasn't sure if the memories were hers or Tyrell's niece.
Mm. But, like, he's kissing her and she just looks so uninvolved. It's just, oh, it's tragic. It's almost like she's thinking, should I react?
He's probably drunk. The way this escalates has always been a huge turnoff for me because it seems so mean. Like there's nothing kind of sexy about
Yeah.
brutalizing.
This is very violent.
It's very
right?
aggressive. Yeah.
I mean, he throws her against a wall, which he literally did.
Ridley Scott, in his words, it was Deckard becoming the stern master, teaching her the waltz.
Oh God.
But to a certain extent, does it count if you sort of force a woman to have sex who's a replicant? Is it rape? I mean, that's an issue that's brought up very forcefully in Battlestar Galactica, where you know a Cylon has been raped, and the crew of Battlestar Galactica want the rapist tried, but the crew of an opposing ship don't, because they're like, well, you can do what you want with them. But they feel, so if they feel abused, if they feel violated, is that what makes it count as rape, even if they're not human?
Yeah. She just seems so uninterested in it. She doesn't seem sexually attracted to him at all. She's just
But at
doing it
this
because she
point,
thinks
she's not pushing him off. I mean, it's so weird. It's one of those, it's like there's that really rough sex scene at the start of Basic Instinct where
But
what's
it's like
his
she's
name?
a child. She's just doing what she thinks she has to do.
Well,
Doing
yeah,
what she's
Like
told.
he's the adult. He's the adult and she's the child.
well, he orders her. He's like, say something like, say, kiss me or something, and then she repeats it, and then at the end she tells him to put her hands on her. But the whole thing just,
There's a much more so in I think this is one of the differences in the director's cut, so to say. That scene goes on for much longer and it's much more violent. It's much less ambiguous than it is here. Priss doing her Robin impression
Robin.
from Batman and Robin.
Ah, I always thought that would hurt your eyes intensely, would
Mm,
burn. It is a very cool look, though.
yeah. And we have a little unicorn right hand side.
Huh.
I think this is one of the great performances in the movie, Priss. I really do.
Apparently, one of these dolls that is moving is a mime. I can never figure out. Oh, there she is. I see her. She's by the unicorn. And that is a dwarf.
Yeah. A common theme this weekend.
What else happened this weekend?
Well, there's a whole
Amadeus.
bunch of dwarf action in Amadeus, and then even in Wolf of Wall Street, if you watch that, there's a notorious dwarf tossing scene.
Oh,
Oh, God. Another connection between this and Amadeus is the two Deadwood characters. This guy who's playing Sebastian and the guy who plays the Emperor. They're both in the TV show Deadwood.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Have
Never
you
seen
seen the
that.
show?
No,
Okay, it's
is it
really good.
good? Okay.
Yeah, it's up there with The Wire and all that.
it's
Really? That's strong.
Yeah.
no,
Super
that's
strong praise.
it's
You don't like it?
okay. Deadwood is
Really?
okay. First five
Deadwood?
episodes are pretty good, and then the rest of
Oh,
it's
wow.
I'm gonna have to
I
watch
think
it now.
I mean, it's not as good as The Wire, but I would put it in the same, like,
no,
top 10
no.
Is
TV
it as good
shows.
as The Sopranos?
Mm, no.
No.
I put it below Golden Girls, maybe.
Get off.
Oh, wow.
Just leave. Golden
Fighting
Girls.
talk. Ah, more Batty.
Hey, Roy.
You can imagine a lot of those sort of 1980s action Arnold Schwarzenegger movies if they'd just had Rutger Hauer in instead would have been so much better.
Yeah, definitely.
Because he's still got that kind of like superhuman look, but at least he can act.
Like so much in his facial expressions, like there's this really intimidating confidence, but at the same time, like I said this earlier, just there's something so boyish and childish, and
Mm.
like the way they kiss, it's like children kissing.
Yeah. Like they are 3.5-year-olds. Like they are just like, yeah. I mean, the smile, oh, it's a great, great performance.
He is the best part of this movie.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And in fairness, it's the only great movie he's done, really. He was, again, a guy whose career maybe should have been better than it was.
Yeah, the only other movie I can remember seeing him in that was that Homeless Man movie where he's killing everyone.
What?
Hobo with a shotgun.
Yeah, he was
He's
very
like
much
he's
like.
like older.
So apparently, there's lots of deep meaning in the chess games in this movie.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That the replicants are
Apparent-
pawns who aspire to be queens, and if you look at all the moves, and it all kind of does make a bit of sense.
Apparently it's analogous to a famous chess game called the Immortal Game back in like
Yeah,
the 19th century or something. And the pieces on the board actually correspond. And like the game between Tyrell and Sebastian, uh, one of the players boldly gave up a series of really important pieces in order to checkmate the opponent with these really weak pieces, which you can kind of see is what Roy does. I mean, he doesn't purposely do it, but he ends up sacrificing his three friends to checkmate Tyrell.
absolutely.
And it's a great sort of dualism between the man and the machine. Although I guess, are they machines or are they clones? I don't know if they're mechanical. They're more sort of
No, I think
biological.
they're clones, aren't they? 'Cause that's why you can have the cells and
Right, right. There doesn't seem to be any mechanical part. Even though they're called androids, there's no sort of mechanics to them.
The
the
whole atmosphere of
science.
the scene, it gets increasingly uncomfortable. But when it starts out, it's so cozy and almost dreamlike. Like they're just sitting around eating breakfast in this playroom. But they put the pressure on him slowly.
It always kind of annoyed me that they killed him. Like, I thought they would be a little bit grateful for him.
Mm. It's interesting because in the book it's implied that they something they bring up over and over is that even though the androids will cling to each other for survival, they would like Deckard. He has these small moments of mercy that he provides the androids before he kills them, and it's noted over and over that an android would never do that. An android would sell you out if it meant they could survive. So it's implied that he's pretty merciless.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's really when he does kill him, it's almost
It just seemed pointless. It just seemed like he was just predatorily tracking down this little rabbit for no reason. I guess maybe they didn't want him to tell what they'd done or anything to the authorities, but it just seemed pointless.
it's disturbing because it's gentle. He's just like, come, and walks towards him very slowly. Like he doesn't have to rush because he knows he'll catch him.
Hmm.
He's such a sweet guy.
Oh, she's so manipulative. You're our best and only friend.
It's another ostrich. It's like someone on production read the book.
When you get to the batty eyes, then let me know. Because I think I'm ahead.
The Batty? Oh, yeah. Okay. Haven't gotten there yet.
So have you heard all the theories about Batty being like a fallen angel? Like who chooses to live amongst the grimy men?
No. What?
And he's like
Yeah,
a
this.
Christ-like figure, and like his death with the dove going as him ascending.
Well, yeah, with the nail through his hand. I mean, that's...
Mm.
Yeah, there's a lot of religious or Christian imagery, I think, throughout the movie, like the stigmata thing where he pushes the nail through his palm.
Alright,
But yeah, as you say,
there's the
like it's
eyes.
almost. Oh,
There's the eyeballs.
The idea of Lucifer being that rather than being a servant in heaven, so being a replicant who's serving humans in an off-world, he chooses to be a king on earth, so a king amongst mortals.
right, yeah. And that, I mean, the first shot you see of Earth is this hellscape. So it's like, as you say, he's descending to this hellscape because he wants to rule among these people rather than serve as a slave amongst the off-world colonies.
But here he gets to challenge his maker.
Yeah, challenge God.
One of the interesting things was in the an earlier draft of the script, what was supposed to happen is that he was going to go up and he kills Tyrell, and he realizes that Tyrell himself is a replicant, and he turns to Sebastian and say, "Where's the real Tyrell?" And apparently, part of the reason why this pyramid is in the shape it is because Tyrell has been cryogenically frozen in this sarcophagus deep inside the pyramid. And so they go back and they look at Tyrell, the real Tyrell, in his sarcophagus, and he's been dead for years and years because apparently during a blackout, the power to his coffin was cut off, and so the Tyrell Corporation has just been making replicants of him through the years to run the company.
That's hilarious.
Perpetually operates on its own.
Come on, if Apple could have done that to Steve Jobs, you don't think they would have done? It's true, actually. There's a lot of thematic similarity between this and Amadeus from yesterday because, again, it's about someone daring to challenge God.
Mm.
I take it
It's
that
also a
was
bit like, oh, sorry.
No, I was going to ask, was it a good podcast?
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was cool. We had like lots of sync issues,
Mm.
which
Yeah, that
involved
was.
me unjustly railing against Australian DVD players, but it was probably my end with a different version. So, but no, I mean, I can talk about that film for hours. I love that film so much. And amazingly, we carried on talking for 3 hours because I really thought it would be tough. But
Yeah, I was surprised we were able to fill it without too many silences.
well, another chess game.
It's interesting to find out because there were dozens and dozens of actors who were originally attached to this movie, but I think the last one before Harrison Ford was Dustin Hoffman was was supposed to play Deckard, and they had sort of tailored the character more to what they thought Dustin Hoffman was, what would suit his talents, and then they had to go back and rewrite it bits for Harrison Ford.
Yeah, I wonder if he would have brought more to the role.
Well, he's a better actor.
Yeah, because
But
I don't think. I mean, the things that are good about Harrison Ford, it doesn't feel like he's bringing a lot to this role. I mean, he's certainly charismatic in something like Indiana Jones, but I don't know if he's doing much with this character.
He's more of a sort of an adventure story hero, like in Star Wars, rather than a film noir hero.
Yeah.
But even Dustin Hoffman, I wouldn't necessarily think of as right. I mean, of the contemporary actors, I'm not sure.
I mean, I can't see Dustin Hoffman as a tough guy or a bounty hunter.
Some of the other people were Jack Nicholson, Paul Newman, Clint Eastwood,
Gene
uh,
Hackman.
Christopher Walken.
Which I could see that.
Clint Eastwood would have been good because it's basically like a Dirty Harry kind of figure.
It's just the line that's coming up when Batty, he comes out of focus and then he comes into focus, like right there. He says, "I want life, father," and originally it was, "I want life, fucker." I wish they'd kept it.
Well, it's better with father for the religious side of it.
Right. Fucker is just, it cuts the crap. Like, you know why I'm here.
But it makes him also seem older. But I love the idea of the man going to seek his maker.
Something that would be redone in Prometheus.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm not a fan of that
Grumble,
film.
No.
grumble.
Nobody here is a fan of Prometheus.
Although, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure at some point there will be like this amazing director's cut, which will make me reassess it. It did feel like a film that had suffered in the editing.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like a film that had nothing to do with Alien, that they just tacked some alien mythology on at the end.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Oh, go on.
No, don't worry. I was going to say something, but actually it's a spoiler for Prometheus, so I probably shouldn't.
I was going to say that while they're having this debate, it's obvious that Batty has done his research because he's very... He meets Tyrell bat to bat for knowledge about how the replicants work and biology and why it can't work, and it seems like he's done everything he can, and this is sort of his last option for trying to find out if they can survive. And Tyrell gives him this really pathetic little truism about, the candle that burned twice as hot burns out fast, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Rutger Hauer just starts looking more and more pissed off. Yeah, the light that burns twice as bright burns half as long. And you have burned very, very brightly, boy. Great line. The prodigal son, again, so very religious, very Lucifer.
Well, there's something great about kissing someone and then killing them.
There's something almost like creepy and sort of homoerotic about the way Tyrell's like, caressing his head. And
Right.
it's slightly kind of pedophilic in a way. It's really, ugh.
I love how it looks like it's hurting him to do this.
And it's the fact that the eyeballs like visually pop out like with this spurt of blood. That's gross.
Oh, Sebastian.
It's very Oedipal. You've got to kill your father to move on. It's a very literate film.
Very mythic.
Ah.
They just, poor Sebastian. Come.
But it's the entirely appropriate way for him to die. In a film all about seeing and being seen, it's exactly perfect.
And the owl does not give a shit.
No.
There's a similar thing in Alien where someone gets torn to shreds and a cat watches on indifferently, as cats would probably do.
Actually, it reminds me, you mentioning owls, I've been meaning to do this for a while, but I need to raise a call to arms for Twin Peaks, but I'm really scared that no one watched it because
I love
none of you were born, basically. Really?
I have the collector, well, not the collectors, I have the box set with all the DVDs.
Oh wow, can we do a Twin Peaks podcast and see if anyone else we can flush any other fans out?
We can absolutely do a Twin Peaks podcast.
Twin Peaks scared the bejesus out of me when I was a teenager.
David Lynch is a terrifying director.
He absolutely is. Even now, just the scene of a girl encased in a chess piece just will freak me out. I didn't sleep. Like, it used to be on when it was coming. I think I was about 13 when that aired, and it would come at sort of 11 o'clock at night, and I'd watch it sort of under the covers, so I wasn't really allowed to watch TV that late on a school night. And I wouldn't sleep. It would just absolutely freak me out. But in a good way. And again, that's a TV show that was very monkeyed about by the networks, but has been so influential. Without Twin Peaks, you don't get X-Files, you don't get so much.
I love the way Spinner lifts off, just fire extinguisher, poof.
Yeah, I want a spinner. I want a spinner and a lightsaber.
One of the people on the commentaries said that it was because of Blade Runners that American cop cars now have like two lights on the top of their, instead of just the one gumball. They're like, yeah, that was because of us. That was us. And I was like,
Really?
That's what they claimed, and I was like, I'm not sure that's true, but maybe it is. Maybe somebody watched, like an engineer watched this movie and was like, that's a better way to project terrifying light.
This is the ideal state of law enforcement. We'll add that to our cars.
Arbitrary extradicio killings. That's how we
Yeah,
want our
this society is running so well. That's what we need.
Oh, brilliant. Um,
I mean, we just went past it, but I always wondered what they ripped off of his car. There's a hubcap and something else.
yeah.
I think we've missed the advert for Atari, but that always made me laugh.
The Atari ads quite early on. It's when they have the other thing that always makes me laugh is that they have when he goes to the person to check the DNA sample that's a snake, and they have the Budweiser signs, but he orders a Tsingtao. Like the beers are still the same, which I love.
Well, supposedly in like
Oh, the $1 Million Theatre we just missed. That's like the first movie theatre in LA. Sorry to interrupt.
oh, is it $1 Million?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, cool.
It's like there's a lot of stuff. If you ever go to downtown LA, there's all these like wonderful listed buildings, and it's a desolate part of town, but there's beautiful buildings, and the $1 Million Theatre is one of them.
I love
In
these cuts to Priss as Deckard is approaching and going through the building. She's almost bird-like the way like she slowly becomes aware of him, and then just her attention snaps forward.
Yeah. Sorry, Duncan.
Sorry, I'm just looking at the lights, like little spotlights. It's awesome. Sorry, I was gonna say, with the Atari thing, in like Hollywood folklore, apparently there's like a curse for all the companies that have put product placement in Blade Runner. Like one of them was RCA, which apparently was the leading electronics company, and it was brought out in 1985 by General Electrics and dismantled. And Atari, which was the leading home console or video game console, was never recovered from the crash in 1983, which is the following year. And a few other companies, Cuisine Art went bankrupt, Bell System Monopoly went bankrupt, even Coca-Cola, which is obviously doing very well today, but the following year they produced, or a couple of years later they released a new Coke, and it was like apparently
Jesus
disastrous.
Christ, that was horrible.
They suffered like
remember
extreme
UK.
losses. So there's like this curse apparently attributed to all the companies.
Yeah, I remember being very forceful in the household about how we should be drinking Pepsi, partly because New Coke sucked and partly because I think that was the point when Michael Jackson did Thriller and he was advertising Pepsi. I'm such a sucker for consumerism.
I always love like corporations of like the future's past. Like, have either of you read The Stars, My Destination?
Nope.
No.
It's a
Never heard
SF
of it.
novel from the 1950s, but it's also kind of like pre-cyberpunk, but this world where corporations rule. And it's interesting, like what they projected to be the most powerful family companies in the world. It's like the Kodak family, runs North America.
Ah, that's
It's
cool.
very sad to me that Kodak has gone.
This room full of very disturbing dolls. The woman on the very far left is the mime.
Okay.
It's like a
There's something very sinister
horror
about
house
her
or
being
something.
under the veil. It always reminds me of Great Expectations and Miss Havisham.
Yeah, Ridley Scott did mention that in the the commentary.
Cool. Okay.
I've neither seen nor read any version of Great Expectations, so
Oh, you must. I mean, don't watch it necessarily, but read it. It's
I'm not a Dickens person.
if that's like the one Dickens that even if you're not into Dickens, it's worth having a go.
Alright, so this was what freaked me out as a kid. Like, it's having seen nothing else of the movie. It was just this woman trying to kill a man with her bare thighs.
I don't understand how his
It is so cool.
Because she's spinning,
No.
like, it looks like she breaks his neck, but he's really, like, his whole body is turning. You just don't see it.
Yeah, I never got that. It seemed like his neck was snapping, and then all of a sudden he's turned around fully. I don't understand how his legs could do that. Oh god,
Yeah.
the body.
And then the fingers up the nose.
I love how
That-
she gets some running room.
Oh wait, I'm looking at her freaking out on the floor. I might be a bit ahead of you.
It's alright. Ah! It's so disturbing. It's like a malfunctioning
She's such a good
doll.
athlete. I mean, she's such a good gymnast. Props to that. Oh yeah, she's freaking out on the floor now.
Oh, I'm going to pause it for a bit.
Which suggests that androids here might be mechanical, not DNA and clones, because it kind of almost feels when she's freaking out like the wiring's gone weird.
Mm.
And she's gone into those kind of weird mechanical looking spasms.
Apparently
Yeah.
she bruised her arms up pretty badly doing this over and over.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Oh, Priss.
Oh, I like Priss. I mean, obviously conditional on her liking me, because I wouldn't want her beating me up. T.
He just swings so dapperly out of the elevator, but then he knows something's wrong.
He's so cool.
Very cool.
He could totally have played Tywin Lannister. I mean, I think Charles Dance does an amazing job. But he, again, if you see him now, has that same sort of patrician beauty. And he could totally have done it.
Does he have that kind of aristocratic kind of feeling, though?
I think so.
That-
I mean, it's
feeling
very
of a
different
nobleman?
because he looks more like a German aristo, whereas Charles Dance has a very sort of English look, I think. But
Yeah, I think you need the English look for a Lannister.
Oh. Thought it was always sort of grotesque that her tongue is poking out.
Mm. Oh. He's into the whole kissing, isn't he?
Yeah.
But maybe that's part of also being a replicant, that need for human touch.
Phew.
Yeah, we're perfectly in sync. Not very sporting to fire on an unarmed opponent. I love that line. Again, there's such I mean, just a line like that, there's such a dignity and such a sense of fair play about Batty. He's such a gentleman in a sense.
But he's so confident about the fact that he can toy with Deckard, and he's not well, it doesn't even matter if he's in any danger. He's going to die soon anyway. Plus, all of his friends are dead.
Yeah, apparently Rutger Hauer had a lot of input in this scene. Originally, it was going to be this big showdown between the two, but it sort of culminates in a more of a chase scene where he's just stalking Deckard through the building.
Snap his fingers.
I mean, he could kill Deckard anytime he wants, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
I always thought it was sad that he never breaks a finger for Leon. He just does it for the two women. And then he gives him his gun back.
But he is the guy with the chivalry of a Philip Marlowe, right? The damsels in distress and the White Knight.
I also love what happens, which is he tells Harrison Ford he's giving him a few seconds to get a starting run, and as he's counting down, he kind of drifts back to say goodbye to Priss again, like it's almost involuntary, like he got distracted and he doesn't really care anymore.
Oh yeah, he cares much more about grieving for Priss than about the end game with Deckard, I think. Which again, it shows me that if the definition of being a human is empathy, then Batty is human at this point. There's so much more emotion in this delicate scene of him touching her wounds than there ever is with Deckard. Mighty Deckard's a replicant. Oh, I mean, how did this not get a Best Supporting Actor nomination? This performance right here.
Well, just the mixture of the face paint on him and then he
Blood.
puts...
Yeah. Oh, stunning direction. How did this not get Best Director? I mean, I don't know. What won the Oscars this year?
I don't have it down.
Let me...
Amadeus.
Was it?
Amadeus
No,
was
that's from the previous
was 84, I think.
Oh, sorry, no. What am I? This is 82, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, it was nominated for Best Art Direction and Best Visual Effects.
And didn't win? That's pathetic.
Well, it's sci-fi. It's horror and sci-fi.
That's,
and
yeah.
It's never going to be nominated for a...
Oh, it was the year of Gandhi and E.T. and Tootsie.
Oh, that's right.
So Gandhi
E.T.
got all the actors. Oh, and Sophie's Choice. So it was Ben Kingsley, Meryl Streep, actress, and you had An Officer and a Gentleman. It's a strong year, actually. The World According to Garp. Gandhi kind of cleaned up a little bit.
It's interesting how
I can't believe Gandhi got best art direction over this, though.
What
That's
art direction
absurd.
is there in Gandhi?
None. They got best costume design over Tron. I mean, that's just bonkers.
I love how Batty he just becomes this howling Wendigo who who's literally hunting Deckard. He just starts howling like an animal. Sounds
So
like he's,
E.T. basically got all the effects ones, and it got best score.
that's not
It's
undeserved,
not
I guess.
stupid. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not stupid. But it just goes to show that the Oscars basically don't really tell you much. What got cinematography? Let me have a look.
Apparently this whole chase scene was their last day of shooting and it was just a nightmare because they didn't think they were going to finish on time. So they were just killing themselves to get through it.
This wasn't even nominated for best cinematography. And Gandhi won over E.T., Sophie's Choice, and Das Boot. I mean, fucking Tootsie got nominated for best DP. That's ridiculous.
I know, Tootsie's a good movie.
It's a good movie, but it's not remembered for its cutting-edge cinematography.
No.
So basically, Dustin Hoffman could have been Deckard or he could have been Tootsie.
That's a hell of a.
Can you imagine Harrison Ford as Tootsie?
Oh, here we go, the stigmata.
Oh,
Oh, that's
It's a nice,
painful.
I mean, it's a
the
nice
strength
parallel
of
with Deckard fixing his fingers and then Batty spearing his hand. It's like I
Jesus.
need this adrenal spurt to keep going.
Is that why he does it?
Yeah, because he's starting to shut down, and he's like, oh shit, I gotta. Something has to keep me going, and nothing's gonna do it except a nail through the hand.
yeah, he's got to like punch. He's got to puncture the nerves in his hand so they stop clenching up or something.
Jesus. I mean, this
Here's
head through
Johnny.
the head through the kitchen towel. Exactly. It's as scary as anything Jack Nicholson did in The Shining. Jesus. It's amazing. It's a film I watched so many times, but it still has the power to make me sit up. I mean, I'm sitting on the edge of my sofa. I'm quite tense at this point. I mean, it still works.
He just
It's
he takes it. I mean, he does not give a shit. And Harrison Ford's like, nope, out of here.
done. I know
Oh,
it's like a horror movie at this point. It's great.
all that
Just the
pigeon shit.
dolls and the laughing and the howling.
I mean, you could shoot a Dracula movie or a Jack the Ripper movie on these sets. You could shoot from hell on this set.
It's like a matte painting there.
It is a matte painting. At this point, he's just having fun.
This is the Warner Brothers New York set, right? So this is where Spider-Man and that kiss was shot. I mean, this is one of the most shot locations.
Originally, they wanted to have Rutger Hauer in a jockstrap. Nothing else.
One for the ladies. I'm not sure how attractive that would really be. A Speedo's never a good look.
I love how he's chastising Deckard as he's climbing up, and he takes a moment to feel the rain on his face.
The last few sensations.
Yeah, it's like one last hurrah of his life.
Oh, the pain of Deckard trying to grasp so works.
Apparently, Harrison Ford did all his stunts in this. Like that was him getting
Really?
getting thrown around and climbing up. He was insistent on it.
Well, kudos to him then, because that's pretty impressive. Oh, you can just feel his exhaustion. This is actually good committed acting. Maybe for the first time.
And it's the little banjo tangent that makes it so painful and real.
Yeah.
The pressure that will be put on that.
And the wincing and yeah, you feel it. They must have all had pneumonia by the end of the shoot, the amount of sheer water they
Ugh.
sank.
Apparently, it was. I mean, looking at it, it looks like it would be cold, but apparently it was just humid and awful, and everyone, like the crew, would show up in their underwear because it was so hot on the set.
their underwear and I Hate Ridley Scott t-shirts. What were the t-shirts they had? It was something kind of really anti-Ridley.
Yeah, there was a small mutiny on the set, and I forget. I think it was like.
And then
He
he had the t-shirt which was racism
he
sucks.
made it. He made a
So-
comment about how he loved British crews because they would always say anything you ask them, I say yes, governor, and then they quickly run to do it. And he said that, and then all the British crew, all the American crew had T-shirts that say yes, yes, governor, my ass, or something like that.
Oh, damn. He really did ask for it. I
Ugh.
mean,
Oh, the girder in the chest.
Interesting. When he was talking to the production designers, he made it. I forget who suggested it, but there was a note made in that whenever you do in film a shot of someone hanging off a ledge, it's important that it not be like 100 stories tall. It should be like 10 or 15, because the taller the building, the less terrifying it is. Like, if there's a sense of reality, like you can imagine falling off like a 10-story building, it's hard to invoke the same peril of like a 100-story building. It's just not the same visceral level.
someone needs to tell Christopher Nolan that.
And there he is with his dove. Yeah.
The shot of him rising out of the smoke as the two fans spin around and the light flickers, it's amazing.
And it's the first time that we see sunlight, isn't it?
Yeah, because the sun
Is
was
it?
they were losing. They were shooting at night, and the sun was coming up because they were literally like in the last minutes of their production, and they're like, all right, we got to wrap.
But people have taken it to mean that with his death, you see, the redemption, the sunlight, the dove.
He has a great line. Quite an experience to live in fear. That's what it means to be a slave.
Mm.
The reason he saves Deckard is because Deckard spits at him. One last
Wait,
time.
you guys up to the part where he's pulling him up?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I think the nail goes into him as well. Into his palm.
Well, I mean, he lets Deckard live because he needs a witness. He needs, just as this movie is all about memory, and he needs Deckard to remember him. Otherwise, he was nothing.
And here we
And
are at one of the best soliloquies in film. It's so good. It genuinely makes me tear up every time I listen to it.
yeah.
Yeah. And he wrote it. So these two screenwriters, he basically are just full of shit. And they were trumped by Rutger Hauer. He created the best line.
And the dove was his idea as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, just the color is so beautiful. Glittering in the dark past the Tannhauser Gate.
And it gives like form to a world that we're never going to see. Just a few sentences and we get this image of this event.
The off-world worlds. Yeah. And it's kind of in this moment when he gives this beautiful speech, he is speaking for every sci-fi fan or every fan of imagining what those worlds would be. Like the enchantment and the wonder of it all.
And it's like the shot in Alien where you see the space jockey and you imagine all the amazing things that must mean. And then Ridley goes and tells you exactly what it means, and it's nowhere near as exciting.
Oh.
Oh.
And Deckard never says a word to him.
What do you say? What do you say to that? That level of insight and tragedy.
Apparently, like in the original theatrical cut, I think the rain stopped and the dove flew like into a sunny sky.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's kind of how I. So in the original cut, now when you look up and the dove flies off, it's sunshine, and that gives the religious theme. So I'm kind of
Apparently,
sad.
apparently in the original one, I think they needed to they were going to film the dove flying off in the same take, but it was so soaked in water that it didn't fly off. It just hopped off his lap and walked away. So it just ruined the poetry of the scene, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
Dove wasn't having any of it.
The Vangelis music here is beautiful as well.
I love the bit at the end where it just cuts to that. Cuts the credits when the door slides shut. That's my favorite music cue.
There's Gaff, who somehow knows where to find him. finish.
He's always turns up exactly after the fight. He knows exactly where he is. It's almost mystical.
Yeah, he is like Yoda. You've done a man's job, sir.
It's too bad she won't live. But then again, who does? That's another great line. Okay, I don't do it justice, but
And delivered pretty beautifully.
Oh, hilarious.
hey, I was a freshman drama student for 1 semester
Really?
in high school. So
Oh, okay.
it was a mandatory art class. This whole final scene before they go out into the elevator is just there's something. I mean, you're completely wiped and exhausted at this point, but there's something very tense about the silence and a bit like the fear is that maybe she's dead when he goes in, but he's not quite sure what to expect and what's in his home.
Cocking the gun.
Apparently,
I think. Oh, sorry.
apparently the screenwriters still get like students who ask them if the images on the television are meant to be the electric sheep that are sending her to sleep or something. And they're like, no, we just ran some background noise on the monitors.
White noise.
What were you gonna say, Duncan?
I think with the fight with yeah, I do think you feel that tenseness and that paranoia when he enters the apartment because the experience he had with being chased by Roy was so intense, and I think Roy wanted to impart that sense of fear that the replicants have felt for so long. And that's what the whole thing was. It wasn't just an exercise in being remembered. He wanted to make Deckard feel something that he wanted to relate an experience to him. And then he wanted to show empathy to Deckard to prove that he did have a humanity in him
Even though
by saving.
this relationship is very groundless, but there's something very tender the way he leans down to see if she's breathing, and for a moment from his expression you don't know if she's dead or not because he winces, but then he kisses her cheek.
Yeah, because the last time we've seen them together is basically him
Throwing her around.
Yeah, exactly. It's not tender.
Brutalizing a woman.
At least he got his fingers seen to.
And then she says, I love you. I trust you. No, you shouldn't.
Yeah, there's something very cruel about this. And he does a total batty, kisses her, and then.
Yeah, it is interesting that they sustain the tenseness. It doesn't have that happy ending that. I mean, I haven't seen it, but I think I've seen a clip on YouTube.
Of them driving away into the mountains.
It's much more peaceful. It does feel so much more tense, even though all the enemies have been destroyed. Oh, unicorn.
Yeah.
Am I ahead of you? Sorry.
No. She stomps on it.
It's a bit corny because they run the Gaff's words over when he's looking at the unicorn, which is sort of unnecessary.
Yeah, I didn't like that. Yeah, but I love the nod.
Yep.
The recognition.
You understand? It's like a little piece of the puzzle. The last piece of the puzzle has fallen into place. He realizes why he's felt this way for so long. Oh, the music is awesome. Love
it. So that was Blade Runner, the final cut. Was it everything you remembered? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I mean, I watched it a couple of days ago and I loved it then, but yeah, it's a great movie.
I haven't seen it for a while, actually, and I misremembered. I thought that in this version they had I really do like the sunshine when Batty dies. I like that religious imagery. So that's the only change I maybe wouldn't have made. But yeah, it's a great movie. It's amazing to think it's less than 2 hours long because it's exhausting to watch.
It's so packed with detail. It's amazing. Just the world building is insane.
It is. I don't get why people didn't get this at the time.
Who knows? It could have been, I mean, short timing, what it was competing with. It also makes me wonder what movies that we think are shit now are going to be classics in 20 years' time.
That's a good point, yeah.
And vice versa. If you ever go through like previous Oscar Best Picture winners the last 10 years, and like half of them you won't remember even now.
So
Like
does anyone
Million Dollar Baby was such a big movie. Who the hell watches that now?
who watches Gandhi anymore? Like we had to watch it in middle school, and it's a great film, but it's like nobody sits down and watches Gandhi. You sit down and you watch Blade Runner.
It's also
And
not a great film. It's just hagiography.
I think Crash won the same year as
Oh no!
Capote
Great
and Brokeback
Don't
Mountain, and it's insane.
don't
Just
talk
because
about
it dealt with
Crash.
racism.
That movie
Yeah,
is
exactly.
terrible.
It's like I'm kind of teeing myself up for the fact that American Hustle is going to win everything and 12 Years a Slave isn't. And, 12 Years a Hustle, 12 Years a Slave is perfect. 12 Years a Hustle. But if that doesn't win, I'll be quite upset.
You want 12 Years to win?
Well, of the current nominees, it's not even
Right,
in the top 10 films I saw last year, but it's definitely the best of the nominees.
God, I remember that year at the Oscars when Crash won over Brokeback Mountain. I forget who was giving the Best Picture award, but you could see how stunned they were when they opened that envelope, and they're like, "Huh, Crash."
There was a kind
Is
of
this
an
right?
audible intake of breath, wasn't there? When that was announced, it's like, oh.
Oh, so anyone have any upcoming podcasts?
Well, there's Lord of the Rings Juggernaut keeps a running, so there's another episode recording tonight for me.
I think we're doing Winds of Winter next weekend. The sample chapters.
Huh.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Now we have Twin Peaks.
Yeah,
Peaks,
we
yeah.
so need to do Twin Peaks. I can't believe you're into that. That's amazing news. That's made me very happy.
I also saw on the potential the Google Doc for like potential shows that you like the Magicians by Lev Grossman, Bina.
Yeah, I'm up for that. I kind of feel that I probably shouldn't do anything until Lord of the Rings runs its tracks, though. But
Fair enough.
Twin Peaks, I'll make an exception for because it's just so freaking awesome. And having said that, I am doing the Winds of Winter, so evidently I'm not very disciplined. It's going to be weird now that we've done Feast Arts and the Winds of Winter. What's going to be the next Song of Ice and Fire sort of topic that people pick?
I know. I feel like we're running out of I feel like a junkie. We're running out of stuff. We need more for Song of Ice and Fire, or we're going to go crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no one's done the Dunk of Egg and Egg novels yet.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I have not read the Dunk and Egg novellas. I'm not a true fan. Secret's out.
No, but they're harder to get hold of, aren't they?
They are. That's been kind of the roadblock for years. Is I was like, I'll just wait for instead of buying these 3 softbacks, I'll just wait for them to all, 4 or 5 of them to come out as one.
Exactly. That's my thinking. And then I think once the Worlds of Ice and Fire comes out, there'll be lots to discuss in there.
I don't think that's ever coming out. I think that's a pipe dream.
It's a mirage in the desert.
Exactly. It's always a year away. But it was like when Amin was quite surprised that only 2 people were on Flight for Sorrows, and I was like, well, if you release the book for like 1 month, you can't expect that many people to have it. This film is dedicated to the memory of Philip K. Dick. It's interesting to me that Ridley Scott didn't because his brother died just before shooting, right? His older brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It always surprises me he didn't dedicate it to him.
Maybe the dedication was... When did Philip K. Dick die? Maybe the dedication was already in place.
Actually, I
Philip
heard
K.
he
Dick
only
saw the early scripts, didn't he? So it must have been...
I think he saw like 20 minutes of the dailies, and he was really into it. So, but he died before it was finished.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for arranging. This was really fun.
This was fun.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
Hopefully the sound worked out. This is a new mic, and I have no idea what it sounds like.
Well, you
sound
sound
fine.
clear to me, so...
Yeah.
All right. Just this is too late to ask, but I was recording the whole time. But in case it didn't work out, was anybody else recording? I'm always
Yeah.
I'm recording.
It's just on default. It always records any Skype call I make.
all right. Good. I always get very paranoid about that. It only takes losing one podcast to scar you for the rest of your life.
I know. Poor old
Have you
Mikkel-
done that? Have you lost
Mikkel
one
did that?
before?
Yeah.
I lost a Korra episode like a year ago, and that was genuinely unpleasant because it's always like the best one you ever did, and then you check, and nothing.
Oh, sad. Okay. Cool.
All right,
Have a-
guys. Thanks for indulging me. This was fun.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
It was great.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good one.
See you guys. Bye bye.
Bye.